Hello and welcome. Let's check out a unique set of Desert Storm cards from 1991, and this is from the company America's Major Players Inc. So while most cards were from the Topps Company or the Pro Set, there was an Operation Yellow Ribbon as well, and a small cartoon series. This is around the fifth major set that was put out around that year, and this focuses on profiles and includes a large map, 110 full color cards. So let's dive in and check out what it's all about and see for ourselves the inside of this unique set. So the first thing we find is this map. So let's take that out and check it out. So here it's a big folding map. So I'm going to zoom out as far as we can go. And on the back of the map, it's got all kinds of statistics about different equipment. The Navy, the Army, the Marine Corps. The Navy with 590,000, the Marine Corps with 195,000, the Air Force with 570,000, and the Army with 761,000 active members. And then over here, it goes into looking at the different armaments and their range, their size. So a lot of details that were put into this. And then we get into the larger air-delivered ones. It's air-to-air. Some are shipborne. Some are hand-carried, anti-tank, air-to-surface. So it really lays out a lot of the armament technology that was used in Desert Storm and references on the back. Now we move to the front. The scale gets a lot different. A lot easier to read this, and it's basically a huge map showing, the Middle East and the areas where setup took place, fighting took place, and I'll try to get you the whole map here. And the details all about that. So here, just give you the overview, and then there's the internal details of Baghdad here, kind of showing palaces, ministries, roads, things like that. The global map, where Iraq is in context of Asia, Africa, and the Middle East. We have a legend talking about mountainous areas, boundaries, fields, etc. And then we come over here and we see the Persian Gulf. There's Kuwait, and then here is Iraq, and the main area, obviously, of the activity. And you've got Baghdad right here in the middle, and then different cities. Scud launch areas are marked over here, and where different armament positions are, planes, refineries, things like that. So when you think about it, for a relatively complex scenario, this map makes it pretty easy to understand the bigger picture of where things are from a kind of resources standpoint, and where and why a lot of the activities took place. So that's pretty cool as an additive to a set. Often sets are only cards with a little bit of notation behind them, so that definitely adds an extra bit of information to it. And so now we check out the cards themselves. It looks like they are inset in here. Any special treasures under here? Nope, nothing there. Nothing there. All right. So it looks like we've got our cards right here, and it's the 110 card set. And they're in this little bit of a kind of like a cello plasticky wrapper to keep them all together. So we will gently slide out these top ones. And the same to the bottom here. Then what we'll do is we'll just take a quick tour of this set. So even if you don't have it, you get to experience what it's like to check out this card set. All right, first up we have General Schwarzkopf. And on the back, so the front is going to be a glossy colored image. We have this brown border, American flag on the top right. I'm wondering if that flag will change based on the country of origin of the person, if there's any beyond the United States. And it lists some statistical information, biographical information, their role, rank, where they were born, education, and a little bit of a biography of the person. So pretty cool card there. And we've got General Powell, Secretary Cheney. And this follows a lot of the other Desert Storm sets that had the same or similar folks in their kind of sequence. Now we get into some gear, which is the focus of this set itself. The M24 60mm mortar, Patriot Sam, and on the back it lists a lot of statistics about it, measurements, range, weight, the vehicle that it is launched from. So if you're interested in kind of the armaments of this period, this is definitely an interesting set for that. So maybe what I'll do is I'll just briefly show the back as well, and that way if you're curious for kind of what that looks like, then you'll have that here to kind of get a feel and see if it's something that you want to get and collect. All right, as I catch up quickly, here we have Richard Cheney and President Bush. Chemical protective gear. Here's the mortar. And I really do like the drawings on the back. That definitely took time to create, and I think is a noteworthy aspect, because some cards just slap pictures on and they're like, all right, we got cards. Though I think these do a pretty good job of really diving into the details of some of this equipment that other card series may not go as deep. And the quality is very nice. The cards feel substantial enough. The glossy front is great. They're not sticking together after decades, which a lot of glossy cards can do. So that makes them even nicer to look through and a little more enjoyable, since they can actually be enjoyed instead of spending a lot of time peeling them apart just to see them and then having pieces of gloss stuck to other ones. So another check mark in the cool box for this set. And here's the F-15 Eagle, maximum speed of 1,875 miles an hour. And here's the TOW missile carrier, high mobility multi-purpose wheeled vehicle, HMMMWV, also known as the Humvee. The FA-18 Hornet, and the F-16C Fighting Falcon. A-7E Corsair II, the F-15, AIM, the AIM-9 Sidewinder, and here it is, the F-117A Stealth Fighter. And here's the 111EF Aardvark. And the EF-111A Raven. So at the time, the stealth fighter was a pretty popular, pretty revolutionary, fighter. It was revealed, I believe, early on in the conflict as the United States' most advanced, publicly known fighter at the time. And the idea was that it would be, used and really tested in that early fighting, and was also touted as kind of the preeminent stealth technology publicly known in the world at the time. So that made it a pretty revolutionary piece of equipment that was used, right away in this conflict. And of course, we have the Chinook and the cool drawings. Range of 230 miles. Does a lot of transport of personnel and equipment. Here's the Huey. Range of 318 miles. So the really fascinating part of any kind of use of equipment like this is the supply chain. When you think about, here's the Huey Cobra has a range of 315 miles. You're off in a different region of the world, and you have to have all these little touch points along the way for refueling, for setup, for maintenance, repairs. And so even though you're in a, far away place, so to speak, there has to be all that logistics set up behind it, or once you get there, building it out, leveraging the infrastructure, of a partner country. And so just designing something like this is a huge effort. And then using it, is a huge effort as well, and takes the planning and coordination of a lot of people to really bring it to the field and put it to use, and then maintain it and care for it and move it to wherever it has to go next. So that's always a really interesting aspect to it that I'm always try to learn about, because here's the Sea Knight, has a range of 238 miles. So when you think about that, how far is the ship offshore or wherever that helicopter is going to, and how much weight is on there, how many people, where is it going, where is it coming back? Because if you're flying somewhere and have to come back, now your range is half that, because you got to get there and then get back. So only 120-mile range, which might not be that much, if you're flying over the water or near onto the shore. So 373 miles on the Seahawk. So you start to think about that, and then how far jets could go. And let's see what this range is, 3,300 miles. So it becomes pretty much an order of magnitude different. You've got around 300 miles on the helicopter, 3,000 miles on the jet, and the logistics to make all of that work. So that's always interesting. And then here you have your ordnance, and you got to plan that. The ordnance is going on, what vehicles, how much weight, how far, how does it affect distance, speed. So just something that's pretty cool about how all this works is beyond the designs, which are incredible, is the logistics to support it all. And here's the howitzer, the M110A2. Almost be interesting if they had posters you could get or something of just the drawings, the line drawings, because they look pretty artistic. And another howitzer. The Hawk Sam. And another vehicle. This says 47V. So the cards seem to have a V after them. I'll have to find out. Oh, maybe that, probably vehicle. And then I wonder if other cards, here, let's check if other cards have maybe a different signifier next to them. Nope. Even the individual people have a V. I thought it would be like vehicle or something else, but I guess we'll find out. Here's the M163 Vulcan. And the MLRS. The M901 Improved Tow Vehicle. And we're just about halfway through, cruising along. The SH3 Sea King. And something else that's really interesting to think about is not only of all these variations of equipment and transports, but also the people that go behind it, the training they have to get, and the different layers of knowledge that goes into operating something like this. You know, you're working all the way from the needs, you know, that a country has, the budget that it has. Then you go through the entire design phase, which has its own iterations and limits and complexities and personalities and budget constraints, time constraints. And then that results in a design. And then you have to build a design, test it, and basically create a production line now of other educated folks that have to build these. Maybe that's designing new machines for construction or manufacturing techniques, how to use them, how to maintain them. That's just to create these items. And then once they're there, you have to figure out, you know, okay, how do we deploy them? You know, do we have to create special transports for them? How do they fit into current kind of supply chains and pipelines to get these different things around the world to where they're needed? And then once they've got that, how are they maintained? Now you have an entire crew after the design team, the production facilities. Now you have maintenance. It's a whole other group of people that maintain and take care of these to keep them operationally ready. And after all that, you have new technology that's where it needs to be and ready for use. And now you need the people that are going to use them. And so you have the experts that, you know, have gotten training in how to use these, and that often takes a lot of time to do. So you could really see how, you know, it's incredible that there is so much developed. Each of these cards is showing a glimpse into that, you know, from the technology to the different vehicles to the different armaments, all that. Each of them alone probably took years of development by different teams, and then testing, implementation, and use just to have it ready for when it needed to be used. So it's a pretty interesting look when you kind of step back and look at the big picture of kind of how things are used and why, you know, it's way more complex than just, hey, let's make a new aircraft carrier. And while also at the same time, that's how it starts. You know, hey, we need a new aircraft carrier. Now let's do the work. And so what we're seeing here is that we have armaments from different countries. So, for example, Here is the flag of Great Britain, the Royal Air Force uses these, the Jaguar GR1. So now we're starting to get a little bit of a look into the international armaments as well as those created by the United States. And what they have put into use. And so, taking our story a little further, we have all of those logistics we just talked about now on a global scale. Each country is kind of doing that on their own. Some countries are going to share technology, and then you have supply chains that may cross borders. And you're not necessarily building everything from scratch yourself. Maybe a country is depending upon another country for production or having enough parts for maintenance. So it's just interesting to look at the big picture of, here's a cool card with an interesting kind of machine on it, and then to think about all the different things that go into that machine and make it work and kind of bring it onto a card. And then I think the most important of all this is the people. The people that create things, the people that train, the people that are stationed on, around, in, and with, that run missions with this equipment. Because at the end of the day, the people are usually, as it should be, what matters most. And so it's good to keep them in mind. And there are definitely some good details on that out there as well. And so while this set focuses on the equipment, I also like to keep in mind too that behind all of it are the people. And so here we're getting down to our last stretch. We have the Hunter. And here I think we're getting into some Iraq and Kuwait Air Force. Here's the Hercules. It's from the Saudi Air Force. And the Bahrain uses this as well, or did at the time. This is all dated information, of course. There's the Hawk 50, UAE, Frogfoot, and the Fitter K. The Mirage F1. Fulcrum A. The Fulcrum C. Where's the B? Come on. It's got to be somewhere. MiG-25 Foxbat. Flogger B. Fishbed K. The Tornado IDS. And the Tornado F3. Range of 1,100 miles. And the Hip C. Let's see, if I had to guess the range, maybe 280. All right, a range of 311. Seems like most helicopters have that 300-ish mile range of use. That one's at 466. All right, a little longer distance. And here's the T-62 tank. The tank range of 400 miles. And then BMP-1 early. 248-mile range. T55, T54, personnel carrier, and there's a transporter, and an anti-aircraft armament, 7,655 yard maximum vertical range with a crew of 5, and the Scud B missiles, which were very prominent at the time, with a range of 112 miles, a performance range, and a total range of 311. All right, so that is a detailed-ish look at this set of cards from the America's Major Players Inc. 1991, and that includes the overall card set and this map that came with it. So if you're interested in that type of history, these type of details, I'm pretty impressed with this set, both its presentation, the information that's on it, the way it looks and feels in the hand. So overall, there you have it. I hope you enjoyed the look. I hope you learned something, and keep on going until next time.